Hey there everyone, Aaron Spalsbury here at 3xLOGIC. Today we're going to be going over a very unique feature that's built inside the VIGIL client software here, and that is the ability of streaming either a substream or a mainstream for viewing purposes, looking at live, things like that. Now really, what's the difference between these two? Well, a substream is a lower resolution stream that comes from the camera, then comes into the DVR, and then of course gets pushed out either to your client or to your cell phone app or whatever it is that you're using to view the video from. The mainstream, however, is the high definition stream. This is going to be the one that has the greatest detail and all that, but really, what's the difference between these two? Well, for starters, if I'm looking at something like this, a multi-screen with a whole lot of cameras, and I've got a mix of cameras here. I've got some 4K cameras, some 5 megapixel, some 4 megapixel, obviously a whole lot of different cameras on here. Well, needless to say, anytime we're talking about large cameras, 4Ks in particular, you may have a very, very large amount of bandwidth being used, and that's really where this comes into play. And in fact, all of these that you see here on my screen are indeed transmitting via a substream. And you can definitely tell this by looking over here off to the left. You've got this little S off to the side. That tells me that this one is being transmitted in a substream. And if you noticed when I kind of hovered it over there for a few seconds, it'll show change over to mainstream. And I can toggle back and forth between these two. Well, in fact, inside of our software, the default, anytime I double click on one of these, it's going to kick this over and initially show me the low resolution substream, and then it's going to default to the high resolution stream. Now you can toggle back and forth between these two anytime that you want. And in fact, I've got mine set up to where my default is if I'm looking at a single camera, I want to see mainstream. I want to see the large high definition imagery. Whereas if I were looking at a multi-screen, I'd be looking at the substream. This allows us to really have two major benefits inside of our software. If I do want to see something, if I want to see some type of detail, or perhaps I want to zoom in on something, this is going to happen, of course, on the mainstream. Whereas if I were on the substream of this particular camera, well, that's going to give me obviously a lower resolution stream. And I can really showcase this very, very well by simply coming over here and saying, okay, I'm looking at the 4K imagery here. Let's see what the substream from this particular camera looks like. When I click on that button, it kicks over to a low resolution stream. Another thing to note here, obviously, the lower resolution means that it's not taking as much bandwidth, and that's really what comes into play. And in fact, down here at the bottom of the screen, we can really showcase this by seeing how much bandwidth this particular camera is using. In this case, I'm on the substream. I'm transmitting about 980 kilobits per second. And those are bits, right? Not bytes, because there's 8 bits to a byte. But if I were to come back over here and say, hey, you know what? I do want to look at this in the form of a mainstream. And again, guys, this is a 4K camera. Those statistics will show up down here in just a few minutes. You'll be able to see this, or a few seconds, I should say. Now I'm up at about 2.7, 2.8 meg, or 2800 kilobits per second, or 3000, 3500. So obviously it's a massive space saver in terms of bandwidth. Now really where this comes into play, if you're in your office, you're looking at this, you probably have enough bandwidth to transmit your mainstream. Perhaps you even have the ability of doing this even in a multi-stream. All of your streams are coming over as high definition. That's fine. Where this really comes into play and where this is a massive advantage is if you're wanting to look at video over your cell phone and you may not have the fastest connection. We all know that at some point, cell phone companies will throttle that down just a little bit, or perhaps, you may be exceeding your plan, whatever it may be. But needless to say, it makes it to where you can have very, very fast video as well as very high definition video, or any mix thereof. That's really what this feature is used for. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. And hey, if you do like this type of video, feel free to subscribe, hit that notification button. We'll let you know every time that we put up a new video. But thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.